Good evening and welcome to this next episode in our study of Dave Andrews' book called Plan B. This will be the second in probably 3 episodes on Matthew 5 verse 9, where he talks about blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. We didn't talk about that last time, but I'm pretty sure that big fat books have been written about this concept of children of God. Who are the children of God? But we're not going to be talking about that today. That will be for another time. Today we are going to talk about the Lamb of God. And I'm sure big books have been written about that too. There's a lot of symbolism in that. And today we're just going to talk about the idea that, let me just take a look here. That he is gentle and pure and peaceable. But there's also the other aspects that we're not going to talk about today, are the sacrificial lamb. And that's for another day. We're going to talk about that. So let me just read the paragraph. It's on page 55 if you have the book and you want to follow along. If you don't have the book, it's okay. We're going to be reading every word, but I definitely encourage you to get it. You can I think it will be very helpful to have all the lessons in one place, because you might have remembered that we switched gears at some point where we began to have this study as an outreach of New Covenant House instead of a lecture series a study series in Christian Anarchists. We're still going to be posting the videos into Christian Anarchists, but and they should all be there if you really want to listen to all of them. But anyway, so here is what Dave Andrews has to say about Jesus as the Lamb of God. I think I really need to get better video equipment and software. But anyway, so John the Baptist introduced Jesus at the beginning of his ministry as the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. And that's found in John 1:29. Obviously, John who writes this is not John the Baptist, but a different John, one of his disciples, one of the apostles. Yeah. So we know the word lamb is not meant to be taken literally. Jesus was a man, not a lamb. And that sentence is kind of significant because a lot of Christians, I think, have gone completely off the rails by being literalists. They take everything as if it was literally what they're talking about. But most of the accounts in the Bible are literature, and there's imagery involved in it. Some of it is history, some of this literature. There's actually all kinds of genres of writings in the Bible, but you just kind of need to know what you're writing, what you're reading. Is it literature or is it history or what is it? Because that kind of gives you the context in which you are interpreting this text, whatever text it is you are reading. But here, definitely, John is not talking about a literal lamb. He's talking about Jesus as the pure and peaceable man. So the evangel says, Jesus was a man, not a lamb. However, the word lamb is used to describe the kind of man he was. He was a lamb of a man, pure and peaceable, not a duplicitous and dangerous wolf in sheep's clothing. And on that note, we have also, in addition to Jesus as the Lamb of God, we also have the imagery of Jesus as a shepherd, where we are the sheep, the flock, and we are the ones who live among the wolves. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little later. But there's this dual role for Jesus. He's the lamb, and at the same time, he's also the shepherd. Yeah. And some theologians will tell you that he's a man and God at the same time. Yeah. Screen keeps blinking out, that's why I have to touch it all the time. Jesus, the Lamb of God, sought to develop communities of what he called flocks of sheep at the grassroots. John 10, verses 11 to 16. And we have talked about just communities before. Jesus wanted to create just communities. Sheep was a seemingly innocuous but essentially countercultural term that Jesus used to describe people who lived with wolves. Those who preyed on other people, but who refused to become wolves themselves, even if it meant that the wolves might rip the flock to pieces because of their refusal to join the pack and prey on others. And we have also touched on that a little bit a couple of times already, that as Christian anarchists, or those of us who are inspired by the radical reformers in the 16th century or so, for people who were following after Luther. Luther did most of his work in the early 16th century, and other people developed it further. But there were also people before Luther who actually developed some of these concepts that he was talking about, like Johann Hus, Zwingli, and some others in the Swiss Brethren and Bohemia, what's now called Czechoslovakia. Yeah. I want you to live your lives as sheep, even in the midst of wolves, said Jesus. Be shrewd, but also always be harmless. And that's in Matthew 10, verse 16. Yeah. So we are in the world. We are supposed to be living in the world, but separate. We can't go ahead and be integrated into the world. We have to know who we are and how we are going to interact with these other people who are not us. Always treat other people as you would like them to treat you, he said. Matthew 7, verse 12. Yeah. So just because people are different from us does not necessarily mean that we have to treat them any kind of different from us. We have to be kind to them as well. The same way as we expect them to be kind to us. Even do good to those who do evil to you. So not only do we have to be kind to our enemies, we have to be kind to them even if they do evil to us. Love those who hate you and bless those who curse you. Matthew 5:44. Don't ever be afraid, he said to his flocks, of those who can kill the body but can't kill your soul. Matthew 10, verse 28. So yeah, that was a little bit about that concept of sheep among wolves, and we can see that in some groups that we already know, like the Amish, who also grew out of that radical transformation. They talk about our people, meaning just people who are Amish, and then everybody else is English. So yeah, and they see the world as evil. Other groups are maybe the Hutterites, who also kind of live in colonies that are separated from the world. Unlike the Amish, they use technology to the hilt. But they also grew out of that radical reformation. The Buddha are very different. They are more outgoing than these other groups. They have, in this area where I live, there are several Buddha, and they have events where they invite the public to come in and interact with the Buddha people. And so they are more outgoing. They go out among other people and talk to them about what they believe. So the evangelist goes on here. Jesus argued for a different approach to that taken in the Moses law, the legitimated retaliation. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, and tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist or retaliate against an evil person. And the evangelist here puts or retaliate against in parentheses because that is not part of the original text. So the original text would say, do not resist an evil person. And the evangelist adds to it, or retaliate. So some groups call themselves pacifists. Other groups call themselves non-violent. Other groups call themselves non-resistant. So they all mean similar things, but there are nuances at how people interpret this. Can you, for example, be what they call civil disobedience? So you break the laws and to show your protest. And some people say that that is not okay because when you do that, you step on people's values. Really, you may not agree with the values, but you're stepping on them, and you're not supposed to be doing that. while others just say that it is okay to do that. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And that's in Matthew 5:38-39. And I mentioned that a few times already tonight, that big fat books have been written about some of these things. And I just saw somebody going on and on about the right cheek. Why not the left? It had to be the right one. And there is some significance to that. Yeah, I'm not sure that it has a lot of meaning, or it could be some kind of some level of over-interpretation if you do that. But anyway, that's what it says on the right cheek. Jesus told his disciples, "You should always be ready to die, but never to kill for your faith." Matthew 16:24. So under his guidance, the Jesus movement became a Jewish peace movement. And we'll stop there because I think the rest of the chapter kind of belongs in its own separate study. And so we'll do that next time. And it begins a little bit with when Constantine made Christianity the official religion of Rome, and that kind of changed a lot of things. And some theologians came up with a list of things that you could somehow justify war, and we'll look at some of those next time. And so in the meantime, have a good week. And I'm grateful that you came tonight, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you.